You are listening to The Reference Desk, the Wicomico Libraries podcast that connects you to your public library.
Welcome back to The Reference Desk, Wicomico County's Libraries podcast that keeps you connected to your public library. Today we are going to continue with our summer series of beach reads, and this month it is poetry time. We're going to be reading from books of poetry or essays. For the children's portion, as always, we are looking into a book of sonnets by the great bard himself, William Shakespeare. As for the adult portion of our podcast, which we'll do afterwards, we are delving into a book called The Book of Delights by Ross Gay. As always, the books we read from our podcast are available on our free streaming service, Hoopla Digital. I'm really excited to read some Shakespeare for the kids, since he's one of my all-time favorites. The poetry and sonnets he wrote, or took credit for writing, but that's not a podcast, were usually written in a meter called Iambic Pentameter. This means that there are 10 syllables in each line of poetry, with a short, long rhythm. Without much further ado, let's jump into some sonnets. The first one I'm going to read is called Round About the Cauldron Go. It is from Macbeth, the Scottish play, Act 4, Scene 1. Round about the cauldron go, in the poisoned entrails throw, toad that under cold stone, days and nights has 31. Sweltered venom, sleeping got, boil thou first in the charmed pot. Double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble. Fillet of a fenny snake, in the cauldron boil and bake. Eye of newt and toe of frog, wool of bat and tongue of dog. Adder's fork and blind worm's sting, lizard's leg and owlet's wing. For a charm of powerful trouble, like a hell broth boil and bubble. Double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble. For the next one, we're going to be doing If Music Be the Food of Love from Twelfth Night, Act 1, Scene 1. Twelfth Night is like my favorite Shakespearean play because it involves twins, and I am one, so I'm partial. If music be the food of love, play on. Give me excess of it, that surfeiting, the appetite may sicken and so die. That strain again, it had a dying fall. Oh, it came o'er my ear like the sweet sound that breathes upon a bank of violets, stealing and giving odor. Enough, no more. 'Tis not so sweet now as it was before. O spirit of love, how quick and fresh art thou, that notwithstanding thy capacity, receiveth as the sea, naught enters there, of what validity and pitch soe'er, but falls into abatement and low price, even in a minute, so full of shapes is fancy, that it alone is high fantastical. The next one I'm going to read is from Romeo and Juliet, and it's one of the most famous lines from the play. It's called But Soft, What Light Through Yonder Window Breaks. It's from Act 2, Scene 2. But soft, what light through yonder window breaks? It is the east, and Juliet is the sun. Arise, fair sun, and kill the envious moon, who is already sick and pale with grief. Thou her maid art far more fair than she. Be not her maid, since she is envious. Her vestal livery is but sick and green, and none but fools do wear it. Cast it off. It is my lady, oh, it is my love. Oh, that she knew she were. She speaks, yet she says nothing. What of that? Her eye discourses. I will answer it. I am too bold. 'Tis not to me she speaks. Two of the fairest stars in all the heaven, having some business, do entreat her eyes to twinkle in their spheres till they return. What if her eyes were there, they in her head? The brightness of her cheek would shame those stars. As daylight doth a lamp, her eyes in heaven would through the airy regions stream so bright, that birds would sing and think it were not night. See how she leans her cheek upon her hand. Oh, that I were a glove upon that hand, that I might touch that cheek. I have one more. And this one is also a very, very famous one. It is from Hamlet, Act 3, Scene 1, and it's called To Be or Not to Be. Almost every theater kid at one point will memorize this soliloquy. A soliloquy is a fancy word for a monologue or a talk they're talking to themselves. To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing them to die, to sleep no more, and by a sleep to say we the heartbreak and the thousand natural shocks that flesh is heir to. 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished, to die, to sleep, To sleep, perchance to dream, aye, there's the rub. For in that sleep of death what dreams may come, when we have shuffled off this mortal coil, must give it pause. There's the respect that makes calamity of so long life, for who would bear the whips and scorns of time, the oppressor's wrong, the proud man's contumely, the pangs of despised love, the law's delay, the insolence of office, and the spurns that patient merit of the unworthy takes, when he himself might his quietus make, with a bare bodkin? Who would fardels bear, to grunt and sweat under a weary life, but that the dread of something after death, the undiscovered country, from who's born, no traveler returns, puzzles he the will, and makes us rather bear those ills we have than fly to others that we know not of? Thus conscience makes cowards of us all, and thus the native hue of resolution is sicklied, or with the pale cast of thought, and enterprises of great pitch and moment. With this regard their currents turn away, and lose the name of action. Soft, you now, the fair Ophelia, nymph in thy origins, be all my sins remembered. In this book, what I found really cool was that after every poem and sonnet and soliloquy, they have a little list of all the words you may not know off the top of your head, and they have definitions for all of them, so that when you're reading back through, you're not confused as to, what they mean. And kind of in a little aside, Shakespeare, of course, he was in Britain back in the 1500s, but linguistics experts, or people who study language for a living, they actually have they determined that Shakespeare actually sounds better and pronounces better in the American accent, because they say that the English had a shift after Shakespeare's time, or right around Shakespeare's time, called the Great Vowel Shift, and it was part of linguistic evolution that happened, because English is funny, yo. And so Shakespeare actually rhythmically and with the rhymes and the sounds of the words actually sounds better with your American accent. So that's why I'm reading it with an American accent, because I think it does sound better. Look it up, it's really fascinating.
So on to the adult portion. This month we are reading from the Book of Delights, and this is actually holding the distinction of being this year's choice for One Maryland, One Book. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the One Maryland, One Book event, this is a collaborative effort by the statewide library system and hosts several programs. They used to be in person in the before times, where you are encouraged and welcomed to weigh in on what you think of the book for that year. Library branches will have copies of this book to give away and some circulating copies as well. We also have a Beanstack program that runs from September 5th through October 9th, and you are, of course, welcome to participate in that as well. The Book of Delights is a compilation of short essays written about daily small delights, or small things that bring the author joy. And this month we are going to read two small ones. Full disclaimer, just in case when you want to pick this book up, there is adult language and adult themes, mild, nothing vulgar, in this book, so just be aware of that to begin, so there's no surprises. The portions we chose to read today have absolutely zero of that in it, so it should be fine for all audiences, even though the kids might not be interested. So if they're still listening, that's okay. I just want to put that disclaimer out that there is, in the rest of the essays, or some of the other essays, some adult themes and adult language that you just need to be aware of going in. So I'm going to read essay number 3, which is a short one, and essay number 23, which is a short one as well. Essay number 3 is labeled Flower in the Curb. Today I was walking back home from some errands, and I realized I take the same route all the time. What compels us into such grooves, such patterns? Up forth past the bakery, past a solicitous cat that chases me and yowls at me to scratch behind its ears, I always make the left just before the big graveyard across the street from where my friend Don Belton lived for a year, before he moved a few blocks away and 3 months later was murdered. I wondered if I ever pass Don's house and don't think of him. Next to that house, butterflies dapple the hedge of buddleia, their wings listing in the moist Indiana heat. One day I was pulling my friend Hercules on a skateboard behind my bike, and we turned the corner, and Don sprinted out in sweatpants and no shirt, hearing probably the growling of the skateboard and peeking out if I didn't also yell in his window, which I did almost every single time I rode by his house. I was sweating and probably glistening, and Don made a big flirty show of wiping the sweat from my brow. I'm a prodigious sweater, so it wasn't hard to come by, and dabbing it on his own, pretending to swoon. This while Arachilus looked on, laughing. The memories don't stop, and so perhaps today I will rename that not quite road, that alley between 4th and 3rd, starting at Don's house, Belton Way. Now, returning from my errands, walking up Belton Way, as I approached 3rd, I saw something bright, maybe an empty bag of Grippos or something, on the curb. But as I got closer, sure enough, it was some kind of gorgeous flower, mostly a red. I don't think I actually have words for. A red I've maybe only ever seen in this flower growing out of the crack between the curb and the asphalt street on the terminus of Belton Way. The gold is like a corona around the petals, and there are a few flecks throughout, the way people will have freckles in their eyes or glints of lightning in their pupils. And beside this flower, or kin with it, growing from the same stem as the blazing as it is an as yet unwrapped bud, greenish with the least hint of yellow shining in the breeze, on the verge, I imagine, of exploding. Essay 23, Sharing a Bag. I adore it when I see two people, today it was, from the looks of it, a mother and child, here on Canal Street in Chinatown, sharing the burden of a shopping bag or sack of laundry, by each gripping one of the handles. It at first seems to encourage a kind of staggering, as the uninitiated, or the impatient, will try to walk at his own pace, the bag twisting this way and that, whacking shins or skidding along the ground. But as we mostly do, feeling the sack, which has become a kind of tether between us, we modulate our pace, even our sway and saunter, the good and soul rhythms we might swear we live by, to the one on the other side of the sack. I suppose part of why I adore the sack sharing is because most often this is a burden one or the other could manage just fine solo, which makes it different from dragging Granny's armoire up 2 flights of steps, say, or wrestling a truck stuck hip deep in a snowbank. Yes, it's the lack of necessity of the sack that's perhaps precisely why it delights me so. Everything that needs doing, getting the groceries or laundry home, would get done just fine without this meager collaboration, but the only thing that needs doing without it would not. I think the one takeaway from this book that the author is trying to press into your consciousness is that even though it may seem that life kind of is mundane and every day is just that struggle bus, taking delight in small things can help you see that every day is a chance to make that choice to be happy and to appreciate what you have, even if it's just the small things like watching someone do a task that is something they can do themselves, but they get help, and that help really does encourage that camaraderie and that connection. Most of his stories reflect connection, the human connection, be it physical, emotional, or otherwise. And I think that's the one thing we took away from this book, that you can take away from this book, is that like human connections are vital to enjoying this lovely roller coaster called life. Thank you for joining us for our book talk this month. I hope you're enjoying this series, and while we are going to be returning to our various topics for the fall, we do hope to do some more book talks and some more book readings as we go. As always, these books are available on Hoopla, and with Hoopla, the benefit is you can check it out right away, and you don't have to wait for anyone else to return it, like you would with the traditional library or Libby, although we do encourage you to use both of those as well. So I do hope you join us for the Beanstack and the virtual programs we have planned for the fall. Like again, that is running from September 5th through October 9th. There will be other programs, of course, going on. Just keep an eye out for your local library's events calendar. Like I said, most of ours are virtual, and there will also be Beanstack, which is, of course, virtual. Beanstack has more interactive programs where you can do conversations, and there will be... you can even like contribute your opinion of the book through that. So that's all we have this month for our August book talk, our beach reads. We do hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Future episodes may feature a variety of topics, ranging from storytelling, arts and crafts, reader's advisory, reference questions, discussion, and more. We also encourage feedback through our Facebook page or in the comments section on the podcast. Visit us online at www.wicomicolibraries.org. Search for Wicomico Libraries on your favorite podcasting site. You can call us at 410-546-5397, or you can email us at center@wicomico.org. That is CENTRE @wicomico.org.